Hello to anyone watching this. I've been thinking about the Euro Fantasy Football for the last few days and come up with the first draft that I thought I'd share. A little bit about me. I've been playing the regular FPL for about 10 years now and never made any content. So figured I'd dip my toe in the water, make some videos about the Euros and just see how it goes. So as we look at the team, first thing to note is I am planning on playing the Limitless chip in match day 2. So the players you see now are effectively in the team just for match day 1 and match day 3. Alright, starting off in goal, going with a combination of Donnarumma and Hradecky, I think. So reason I went with Donnarumma is I quite like that Italian defence. I think I want someone from Italy and he seems like the most nailed option. So it's quite an easy choice. And then Hradecky is just a cheap option. Not expecting Finland to keep many clean sheets. I may upgrade him to a 4.5. I think Turkish goalkeeper's been spoken about as a potential option, so that's one to look at. But for the minute, I think Donnarumma is one of the best choices. I think a good alternative could be one of the Dutch keepers, depending on who starts. Stekelenburg, I think, is the most likely. He's been given the number 1 jersey. Slight fear that maybe Tim Krul would start, but if we find out one of those is nailed on to start, then I'd strongly consider having them in my team as well. Moving on to the defence now, and the players you're seeing on the screen at the minute are largely placeholders because they could be interchanged with similar options. But essentially, I'm thinking of going 5 times 4.5 million defenders because I think there's a lot of good value there. So Pau Torres for Spain, if it's confirmed he's starting alongside Laporte, I think he's a great option. Denayer at Belgium, again, strong team, expect them to do well. Wijndal of the Netherlands, he does have some competition. I think Daley Blind, Patrick Van Aanholt, maybe he's a left back, but if he can get his place in the starting 11, I think he's a great option. But yeah, there are other players at that price point, such as maybe Alioski. He does play for Macedonia, but he's on penalties as well. So I do quite like that. It's tempting, especially with the manual substitutions. Having a player like that could be quite nice. All right, let's move on to the midfield now. And I think we'll start with the guy currently with the captain's armband. That's Lorenzo Insigne. Now, Italy are playing on the first night to the tournament, so I think it is good to have a really decent captaincy option from that day. The obvious ones, I think, are Insigne and Chiesa. A lot of people are going with Chiesa. He's 1.5 million cheaper than Insigne, I think, so definitely a good option. I've taken a look at their stats over the season, and Insigne has been scoring more goals, both in absolute terms and on a per 90 basis. He gets more shots in the box, and he's also a bit more nailed on in that team, which is why he's in my squad at the minute. Now, I think we'll find out the Italian lineup before the deadline, so if Chiesa is starting in that team, I might switch it out for more funds, but I quite like Insigne, and he's a bit of a differential, not very highly owned. Alright, next let's talk about David Alaba. He's in there mostly as a rotation option. I think with manual substitutions, it's good to have everyone be playing. They're all going to start for the team. You don't want any dead weights in that squad. Because originally I was considering just getting like a 4.5 or even a 4 million. I know there's one that's very popular at the minute, but I've had a look and I think David Alaba is probably the best one. There's not much option in that sort of price range unless you're willing to get more funds and go to a 6.5-7 million pound option. I think Alaba's probably the best at 5.5. He doesn't really play as defensively when he plays for Austria. He's even played on the left wing, so it's not a bad option, and he's playing Macedonia as well, so they could be a team to target this tournament. Next up, we can talk about Steven Berghuis from the Netherlands. He's another one who's quite a bit of a differential. I think 1% owned at the minute, although I have seen him in a couple of teams. He's just 7 million, which makes him quite a bit cheaper than Wijnaldum. He is probably less nailed, but I'm going to keep an eye out on the international friendlies, see if he starts, see how he looks. But if you've got the funds, I think Wijnaldum's a good option to have in there as well. And looking towards the bench, you can see Ferran Torres and Diogo Jota. Torres, I think, is an exciting option. He should play all Spain's matches. They should be a good team, got a fairly easy group, so I'm excited to see what he can do. Jota, I want a Portuguese player, Portuguese attacker, just to have a captaincy option on that final day. I think Jota's pretty cheap for what he could offer. I can see him having really good Euros. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo is kind of the main one you'd want, and I am tempted by him. I think at the end I'll kind of go through some different tinkering options which have Ronaldo in the team. But I think it'd be good to have a captaincy player for that final day. You'll probably notice that most of my midfielders are pretty reasonably priced compared to regular FPL. You know, when we've got Salah, Fernandes, Son taking up a lot of our budget. I think these Euros, a lot of the funds are going to be going into that forward line. I think the midfield options, De Bruyne is injured. I don't really get too excited about Hazard. But when you've got Lukaku, Kane, Lewandowski, Ronaldo up front, I do think that's where you've got to focus a lot of your finances. So for me, I think Lukaku's the only one who's definitely going to be in there. He's going to lead the line for Belgium. He's had a great season, and I'm expecting him to have a great Euros as well. The minute he's partnered alongside Harry Kane, I am English. I'd love an English player in there, and I think we're going to do well in our group. Even though Croatia is a difficult game, if we score, I think Harry Kane's going to be involved, whether he's scoring or creating, as we've seen with Spurs this season. So I'm excited by these two big hitters up front. Partnering them, we've got a much cheaper option in Kalajdzic from Austria. He's just 7.5 million, and he's also had a great season this year. So I think, again, targeting Macedonia a little bit. They could be the weakest team in the tournament. There are some alternatives. Obviously, his teammate, Marko Arnautovic, is a popular one. He's also on penalties. So, again, I may well switch, but he is just coming back from an injury. So we've got to see, does he make it right into the starting 11? I've also heard Arnautovic may be forced out wide to accommodate for Kalajdzic. So that's one that I'm going to wait and see. Another option, I think Gerard Moreno from Spain, if he can nail down a starting spot. He is kind of facing some competition from Alvaro Morata, but Moreno's had a really good season, so if he gets that starting spot for 6.5 million, he'd be straight in my team. Alright, so on the screen at the minute, I've had a little bit of a tinker around, and I've come up with a fairly different squad, to be fair. Some of the changes aren't too major, like swapping some of the 4.5 million defenders around. But I think the main one is bringing in Ronaldo. I quite like that. And Wijnaldum, I'm probably more comfortable with him than Berghuis. But yeah, this just highlights some of the options I've mentioned in the video so far. Also draws attention to some others, such as Eriksen. I don't think he's a bad option. Mason Mount as well, I quite like. He's probably guaranteed to play most minutes. He is somewhat reserved, as I don't think he's going to be playing as far at the pitch as like Phil Foden, Jack Grealish. He's more in that midfield three, but I still think he's a good option. He had a great season, so I reckon he could pop up with a few goals. But yeah, I'm not sure which of these drafts I prefer. Probably the first one overall, although bringing in, I think, Ronaldo and Wijnaldum, I think I could see myself doing that before the tournament starts. Alright, that'll do it for this video. If you've got any suggestions or any questions, leave them down below. I can take a look at your team, let you know my thoughts. If you liked it, leave a like. Otherwise, maybe see you again. Might do another video. Who knows?